Doom Eternal is a game in love with the Doom franchise. It's got some insanely baroque and epic lore that ties the entire franchise, even Doom 64 together, into a single universe-spanning narrative. It's got visuals that evoke the classic over-the-top metal album cover art style of the original game, and the Doom guy even plays the original Doom in his free time when he's not chainsawing monsters in the face. Does it make any sense? No. Is it supposed to? Also no. Just a quick heads up, there are going to be some spoilers for Doom Eternal here, no story ones, but I will obviously be showing the gameplay, and if you don't want to see that, why'd you click on the video? Huh? Yeah, it's not my problem, is it? You knew what you're getting into. Doom Eternal is loads of fun. So much so that it brought to mind an old classic piece of design advice that id Software have apparently gone deliberately out of their way to ignore wherever possible. And that is, less is more. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase before. Less is more is a classic piece of design advice that's been around for ages. It was first recorded in the 1855 poem Andrea del Sarto by Robert Browning, but it's probably been around even longer than that. It means, more or less, that by eliminating elements of a piece of art or design that aren't 100% needed, you'll be able to focus your work down into something much more specific and effective than a broader, less refined alternative. Less content can actually be worth more. Less is more design worked for these cool chairs, this building, and those weird minimalist wallpapers that were popular a few years back. It's a widespread design aesthetic that id have actually used before, way back in the ancient past year of 2016 when they made the predecessor to Doom Eternal, simply called Doom. It's weird to see these two games, Eternal and 2016, side by side, because although they look basically the same, and control more or less identically, each one feels very different to play, and that's because they're informed by two very different schools of design. Doom 2016 is minimalist, and tries to focus down onto a single specific theme, cutting everything else out. Doom Eternal is whatever the opposite is, I guess. Maximalism? It revels in excess, and rather than providing players with a singular experience, it gives them a bunch of tools to create their own take on the Doom formula. I think these two weird siblings are a great opportunity to have a look at less is more and minimalist design principles and see how adhering to them, or rejecting them, can create very different games with different strengths and weaknesses despite using broadly the same ingredients. Let's start with Doom 2016. The Doom soft reboot is about one thing and one thing only: putting you in the shoes of Doom Guy, and making you feel like a one-man army hell-bent on tearing demons limb from limb and filling them with as many bullets as you can find. And so everything that doesn't contribute to this power-trippy vision has been cut out of the formula entirely. The previous entry in the series, Doom 3, had a horror element, flashlight mechanics, and a pretty in-depth story, and all those things are more or less absent from Doom 2016. Instead, the game focuses down on getting you, the player, to experience the same singular fury that drives the Doomery. Glory kills in particular really sell this vision. When a demon is on low health, it enters a stun state, allowing you to smash it up like a giant piñata and feast on the delicious candy within, giving you some precious health. Pretty much the only way to play Doom 2016 involves hyper-aggression, and getting up close and personal with demons, trading blows until you can glory kill them, and heal up just enough to keep moving towards your next target. Doom Eternal, on the other hand, is a very different beast. Rather than focusing on a very specific thematic experience, Doom Eternal's team have opted for something broader, that being a constant sense of momentum and fun. A large part of this approach is an expansion of pretty much all the systems in Doom 2016. There's more enemies with more defined identities, brand new platforming elements, and a bunch of new abilities like the Flame Belch and Blood Punch. By adding in all those elements which are drip-fed to you constantly, Doom Eternal is able to give players a much deeper and more varied combat system than its predecessor. Instead of giving you the opportunity to give in to your inner Doomslayer by blasting away pack after pack of monsters with the super shotgun, Doom Eternal forces you to think tactically and prioritize particular enemies, as well as time the use of your abilities to catch as many bad guys as possible. The fun in Doom Eternal isn't from the visceral, adrenaline-fueled thrill of ripping and tearing until the work is done, but in thinking on the fly and using your knowledge of the game's systems to dispatch hordes of enemies in the most efficient and badass way possible. This difference in approach can be seen very clearly in the enemy design. Take the iconic angry meatball that is the Kako Demon, for example. In Doom 2016, these guys are there to scare you and provide a new, suitably monstrous threat for you to conquer now that you've arrived in hell. They take a lot of bullets to kill and can blind you with their spit, so you've got to keep moving to avoid them, which ends up putting you into tense situations as you're forced to run into other enemies. In Eternal, on the other hand, their ranged attack has been upgraded to be absolutely lethal, and they're a much higher priority target. However, cacodemons have also been given an extra weakness. Lobbing a grenade into a cacodemon's mouth will grant you a guaranteed glory kill, allowing you to dispatch them very quickly if you're a good shot and have grenades spare. By making some small changes, Doom Eternal turns that cacodemon from a singular source of pressure and stress into a tactical challenge. Are you going to waste crucial resources taking one out with a precious grenade? Are you going to spend ammo and time taking it down the normal way? Or are you going to try and keep moving, confident that you can maintain enough distance not to get munched on? There's also the consideration of if it's worth investing in the more situational shotgun grenade launcher specifically for dealing with cacos, which means sacrificing the sustained firepower of the autofire mod. In Doom 2016, enemies are all dealt with more or less in the same way, by running towards them with bloodlust in your veins and firepower in your guns. That second one is usually more important, but Doom Eternal forces you to think more tactically. Increased enemy firepower, health pools, and an abundance of melee monsters means the reckless tactics will usually end in your grisly demise, and you'll need to come up with a new solution, the form of which is basically up to you. And really, that's the biggest difference that you can highlight not just between Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, but minimalist and maximalist schools of design. One is a pre-assembled package containing everything you need to have a tailor-made experience, the other is a lot of vaguely themed parts that you can use to assemble your own experience. We can see this difference quite clearly in city builder games. Some of them are trimmed down and restrictive, forcing you to build your little town in a particular way so as to communicate a specific feeling. Frostpunk, for example, pretty much necessitates becoming to some degree a dictator, and even the most ethical possible playthrough will still involve setting your people to life-threatening work in the coalfields and having to make tough choices between letting the sick suffer or stockpiling food for later. Regardless of which of the campaigns you play, you'll always be making hothouses and medical tents, and you'll always be building your city in circles around the omnipresent heat-giving generator that is your primary concern at all times, even over the lives of your own people. This all coalesces into a game about making tough choices under tough circumstances, and not so much creative expression or true-to-life simulation. Playing the ultra-relaxed Serenity mode, added by popular demand, really proves this point. Without the back-breaking pressure of the cold, resource shortages, and almost certain doom, the game is kind of boring, and simply doesn't support other kinds of fun. Compare that to something like Rimworld, or the infinitely less viewer-friendly Dwarf Fortress. These two games hand you a set of systems and tools, but let you use them to tell your own story. And the name of that story? Dog Punchers. There are some other ones you could tell as well, of course. Want to customize a thriving village of happy people to your heart's content? Go nuts. Want to make a starving cannibal tribe constantly on the brink of extinction? That's fine too. I've never even started Rimworld's main quest of building a spaceship and going home, because the game isn't really interested in trying to tell you how to play. The systems and mechanics are there to generate interesting complications, but you're very much the storyteller. Conversely, minimalist design tends to zoom in on a very specific frame of mind or emotional state that resonates with every part of the game. The classic example of this sort of approach is in Fumeto Ueda's Design by Subtraction, found in classics like Ico or Shadow of the Colossus, but it's found in much more mainstream titles as well. The Resident Evil games are great examples of how to use very elegant, streamlined design to create tension and fear. Your basic zombie in Resident Evil 2, by far the most common enemy type, has no special mechanics or AI. Basically all they do is shamble slowly towards you, and yet the game manages to make this feel absolutely terrifying. Zombies have boatloads of health and just will not stay dead unless you pour a whole clip of ammo into their head. Knocking them down for a little bit is much easier, but it means they'll be back next time you visit, ready to lurch towards you all over again. All this means you've got to play it smart and simply run away from most encounters, or try to stun zombies with a headshot if you really have to. You feel powerless against a horde of inevitable enemies designed to slowly yet relentlessly whittle you and your resources down. Thanks to the deliberately bare bones and clunky combat mechanics, even successfully taking down a zombo feels more like you barely got away with your life than an empowering moment of triumph, specifically because you didn't have the wiggle room and freedom afforded to you by more complex, flexible systems found in a less minimalist game. Even saving in hardcore mode, which is the default in the original games, involves mucking around with painfully limited inventory space and resources, ramping up the tension even more when an hour of progress is on the line. Doom 2016 is nowhere near as minimalist, but it does take similar steps. In order for you to really immerse yourself in Doomguy's angry frame of mind, there need to be absolutely no distractions. As such, the entire game is presented from Doomguy's first-person perspective, and the player is excellently introduced to the way the game expects them to feel by the way Doomguy actively ignores the law and is mean to computers. There's even some lovely little UI touches like the impact compensation pop-up that appears when you land, or the way you get suit upgrade points by pulling chips out of the chests of dead soldiers, that all help to sell the reality of the game and make you feel like you're looking out of the visor of a suit, rather than a gamey UI. Doom Eternal, on the other hand, wears its status as a video game loud and proud, and is much more concerned with function over form. The UI is much more colourful, showing brightly coloured gameplay information like ammo types, armour, and distinct enemy coloration first and foremost, because the game is putting you and your decisions in control. The glory kill too is much more vibrant here, because it's now a tactical choice to put yourself in harm's way to get some health instead of a moment of catharsis. Well, it's still sort of that. Yeah. Doom Eternal even breaks its sibling's cardinal rule of first-person perspective, because in this game, you're not supposed to think of yourself as Doomguy. You're a person playing a video game. This is the reason why the game includes bizarre geometry-bending platforming segments. Without the pressure of needing to keep the player fully immersed in a doom-slaying berserker mode 24/7, the game is able to separate combat encounters into isolated chunks, each with their own distinct challenges and themes, which helps to keep things fresh. Doom Eternal's priority is in giving the player information and options. To this effect, it even lets them change the difficulty on the fly or activate cheats, because it's not telling you how to have fun. If you want to chill out bashing pushover demons or to put your tactical skills to the test, Doom Eternal is right there with you. As a rule of thumb, what maximalist games lack in a consistent tone, they make up for in flexibility. But it's not all good. These two opposite styles do still have their weaknesses. Doom 2016's strict focus on its one particular state of mind means that the elements of the game that don't involve ripping and tearing pull you right out of the experience. The secret hunting in particular is really guilty of this. Backtracking through levels, not fighting any demons, and with no outside pressure means that the wave of adrenaline you've been riding for the last 30 minutes basically just disappears. However, secret hunting also gives you precious armor and weapon upgrades, so you feel compelled to do it, even if that means sacrificing what makes the game fun. Secret hunting actually works way better in Eternal, where the broader focus and greater variety of platforming abilities makes it a nice change of pace, rather than something boring. Doom 2016 also suffers from being a bit too long. As fantastic as the core loop is, it camps out in complexity and mechanical nuance about 2/3 of the way in, and though the gameplay is just as fun and frantic the whole way through, it slowly becomes more and more routine. Minimalist games, true to their name, often tend to be shorter for this exact reason. Games like Portal fully explore their one idea and then cap things off before you have a chance to get bored. Doom 2016 on the other hand turns furious demon extermination into a bit of a chore, souring the latter portions of the game. Eternal has, as you might expect, the opposite problem. The more ideas and mechanics a game is juggling at any one time, the larger chance it has that two of them won't mix very well. We can see this in the case of the very limited ammo system and the chainsaw. Doom Eternal limiting the max ammo of guns works in theory, as it forces players to make interesting choices as to which gun they want to use, rather than just using the super shotty for everything. But that means they need to use the chainsaw, which rips enemies up into a bunch of ammo much more often. This is a problem, because it turns what was once a brilliant fuck you one-hit kill button into something that gets used exclusively on lame fodder enemies to farm ammo, instead of as something fun. Another example of this happening was in Fire Emblem Awakening, which introduced a cool team-up mechanic as well as an increased focus on relationship building between characters, by giving ones who were friends extra stats when they were close by each other. Two benign systems that combined to create unkillable double acts of husbands and wives who completely ruin the game's tactical balance. Additionally, the game runs into the problem of including so many new elements that some are guaranteed to rub players the wrong way. The deadly Marauder mini-boss who requires some very fancy footwork to even damage, let alone kill, and the platforming bits I mentioned earlier are such wild departures from the Doom formula that their mere inclusion have pissed some fans off, which, regardless of the game's artistic ambitions, is never a good thing. Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are both great games, but neither of them are perfect. Doom Eternal is a bit of a mess on a variety of levels, and it's got so much going on between the bonkers story, billions of collectibles, and weird new enemy designs that it's hard to work out how you're supposed to get the most out of the game. On the flip side, Doom 2016 is a tightly crafted thematic package that sort of outstays its welcome, and as such, a lot of its biggest fans have never actually finished it. But the real lesson I think we can draw from these two games by comparing their disparate styles is that just as games can be designed to be minimalist or maximalist, they can be played in those ways too. By learning what goes into designing each kind of game, and how the developers expect us to play our part, we can approach games with the right mindset and as such get much more out of them. I imagine there are a lot of people who played Breath of the Wild, for example, like a traditional Zelda game, following the critical path of the main dungeons and the final boss, which are the worst bits of the game. The real value is in all the extra weird side stuff and optional content. Similarly, a lot of people have complained about minimalist games like, say, Mirror's Edge feeling shallow, when in reality, great minimalist games don't have much going on because they're intended to be precise, and only engage with one or two fundamental gameplay ideas. The Mirror's Edge sequel was rubbish precisely because it tried to address this concern by polluting the purity of the original game. The Doom series is a foundational part of video game lore, and just as the medium continues to grow and become more sophisticated, so must Doom. These two experiments into different kinds of design aren't perfect, and they certainly aren't for everyone, but they're enduring proof that even the most venerable and beloved gaming icons can still be reimagined and iterated upon, and by doing so, we can transform old ideas into interesting new forms. So whether you prefer Doom 2016, or Doom Eternal, or even the originals, it's important to know that at the end of the day, the one that you prefer is objectively correct and empirically the best Doom game. You and me? We're the ones with taste. We like the good Doom game. The one where they got it right. All those other idiots? Forget about them. Hi and welcome to the end of the video. This is a little section where I recommend a cool YouTuber and do a shout out for my even cooler patrons. Today, I'd like to point you in the direction of Tom Francis's YouTube channel, who is a game developer and writer who's recently started posting updates as to the development of his new game, Tactical Breach Wizards, which I am very much looking forward to, and he's also got a bunch of tutorials and design insights on a bunch of topics as well. I think he's got a lot of great experience, and it's always good to take advice from people who, you know, actually make video games for a living instead of chumps like me. Please do check him out. I'd also like to shout out my fantabulous patrons, who are amazing and cool, and I think most of them have actually gotten more attractive since signing up. You just can't argue with pretend results. If you'd like to support the channel and ensure that I don't need to do any sponsorships or anything, please sign up if you can afford it. If not, a like and a subscription, or whatever YouTube demands you do these days, works as well. A special extra shout out goes to my $10 a month patrons, who are Alex Deloch, Alexander Kramer, Asaran, Auno94, Baxter Heel, Big Chess, Bodhi, Brian Notariani, Daniel Metjes, David Dumitrascu, Dirk Jan Karambeld, Doodlehog, Evie, Ibathon, Jordan, Joshua Binswanger, Lee Berman, Lucas Slack, Lunar Eagle 1996, Mace Window 54, Max Filipov, Mr. T with some tea, Patrick Romberg, Philby the Bilby, Prospero, Ray's Dad, Samuel Vanderplatz, Steve Riley, Strateger in Ultima, Zach Schuster, and Chow. Okay, thank you for watching, enjoy Easter and stay safe out there. Bye!